It's time to accelerate. Hi, I'm your host, Andy Paul. Join me as I host conversations with the leading experts in sales, marketing, sales automation, sales process, leadership, management, training, coaching, any resource that I believe to help you accelerate the growth of your sales, your business, and most importantly, you. Hello, and welcome to Accelerate. This is another episode of Frontline Friday with my very special guest, Bridget Gleason. Bridget, how are you today?
Andy, I'm doing really well. And you?
Doing very well. A little tired. Just got off a plane not that long ago. But yeah, other than that, not too bad.
And you're back in your West Coast office?
I'm back in my West Coast office.
And getting ready to go further west?
Yeah. I'm going further west in a week or so. Yeah. Well, I've been there and back by the time this episode airs, probably. But yes,
Okay.
heading to Maui.
For a little half marathon, as I recall.
Yes. Yeah, family tradition with my sister. We've been doing this for the last several years. Is we go to Maui. I think I'm probably to blame for this, but we go to Maui and run a half marathon. Actually, it started with the time my sister was going through some really tough things in her personal life, and I thought she needed a goal, something outside of herself. And so, I called her and said, "Look, I've always wanted to run this half marathon. Why don't we go do it together?" And so, yeah, she had never done, a distance like that before, and I think it helped her. So now it's become a tradition. So we've been doing it year after year.
That's fantastic. What a great tradition and how fun. A great thing to do with your sister.
Yeah. So it's a nice sort of flat course. And it's cool. They started at 5 a.m. So it's completely dark because you want to get in before it gets too warm.
Too warm, right.
And it's a fun experience. It's not a huge field, but it's a real community. People, a lot of talking, because everybody's from somewhere else, right? So all you have to do is line up when everybody serve a couple thousand people, I think maybe run it, and you're lining up at the starting gate and starting area, and it's just, where are you from? Where are you from? And there's, honeymooners and, people been doing it year after year after year, sort of like we are, and it's a fun crowd.
Well, Andy, you'll have to let all of us know how it goes.
If I'm still alive afterwards, it went well.
I think you will be. I think it's a great thing to do.
Yeah, it's fun. It is a lot of fun. So, and you can't beat the location.
Cannot beat the location.
Yeah.
That's right.
Nothing that sucks about that.
You're no fool.
Yeah. Most
you
of the time.
didn't pick Detroit. I shouldn't. That may sound bad to anybody who's from Detroit, but Hawaii just has a different pull. I live in Redwood City, so I wouldn't pick to do one here either. So I'm not trying to pick on any particular city or state. I just think Maui's a good choice.
Yeah, it's a good choice. And as I said, it has the virtue of being flat. So, all right. So I thought today what we'd talk about is, do we get attached to prospects too easily, or that will never close? And I've written about this before. I call it the sunk cost effect. And I don't know if you're familiar with this whole idea of, the sunk cost is that, I think the economists call it the sunk cost dilemma is you invest money in a project and you continue to invest money and it becomes pretty clear that maybe it's not going to go anywhere. But you've invested so much money that rather than stop and maybe invest in something else going forward, you say, well, if we're so far into it, if we just invest a little bit more, it'll come to fruition, but almost never does. So your decision making is biased, per the topic we talked about in our last episode, based on the fact you've invested time, effort, money into this. And so you see this all the time in sales. As you may have somebody that's working on a big complex deal, the prospect's well qualified, the sales reps invested substantial sales time to move it forward, and he thinks he has a good chance of winning the order, but his boss, she doesn't think that's the case. She wants to know why why the company should continue to spend time and resources on this deal. And the rep's saying, oh, but it's, we spent all this time and it still looks good, but nothing's happening. So you sort of reached a point where common sense would say, well, we should really stop investing time and money into this one. But then we fall into this trap, this sunk cost trap.
And it's hard, Andy. I just think about many, many, many situations where I will be talking to a sales rep who's been working on a deal. And just like you said, they've invested a lot. They are hopeful. They want to see it happen. It's not moving. It's hard to let go because what if, well, maybe that you're telling me there's a chance type of hope. And really important skill in sales is knowing when to walk away.
Yeah, and so economists have studied this whole phenomenon of the sunk cost effect or sunk cost dilemma, say that it's almost impossible for the person who's the lead. It's almost impossible for them to make that decision. That this is really where management or an outsider, a coach, or somebody has to come in and look at it and say, "Yeah, Bridget, this one's just not. This is not worth it anymore."
Yeah, I think I can see that. I mean, I would say that definitely rings true in my experience, that the rep is typically not ready to let go. They don't want to let go. I don't think they always count the cost, the sunk cost and the opportunity cost. They're spending time and energy chasing after this one account, which means that they're not spending time and energy going after a different account that actually could yield a positive outcome. And in most cases, it's very difficult for them. Again, it rings from experience that there's a lot of encouragement and sometimes even stronger than that required to get them to move off and away from a prospect that's not going to close. And they can't see it, but they're not objective anymore. And I think that's what happens, that you lose some objectivity. And one of the things...
I was just going to inject. I was going to say, oftentimes frontline sales managers have the same issue. They share some of that same lack of objectivity. I mean, so oftentimes the party that really needs to sort of step in and help make that decision, could even be higher up.
I agree. I think that's true. I see that less often, but I do see it. I would say, just in my experience, more often, the frontline manager sees it too and will say, listen, John still is not, this deal is not going to close. I'm going to give him, I'm going to allow him to do X, Y, Z, and then I'm going to make sure that he moves off of it. But there are also instances where, like you said, Andy, I see the frontline manager that has also, depending on how involved they are. And I think when they've been really involved in the deal, then it is more likely that they lose some objectivity as well, and it's hard for them to cut the cord. And one of the things that I work with sales managers and sales reps alike on is how they can recognize the signs as well, and how to insert sort of some dating criteria into it so that it can help them to be more objective.
So what do you recommend?
Well, things like if they haven't if they've gone dark for X amount of time. I mean, there's a lot of different criteria. If the decision maker hasn't been involved in the last two conversations, if there's a change in management and things have been stalled over X period of time. Some of them are a little bit deal specific, but I think generally they revolve around signals that a decision maker is not bought in, that the prospect has gone dark, there's been a change in the organization or structure, that there may be external circumstances that you see are at play, that you think this company just got acquired. There's no way, no matter what they're saying, they're not going to go for it. Just look at it.
Exactly. Oh, I think that's one. And you said going dark. I think going dark is a good one. Is that if you're working on a deal with a really long sales cycle, and you're in sync with the customer, there could be times they go, I wouldn't say dark, but they're not communicating because they go quiet because you know what the next step's going to be and when it's going to happen. That's different from when, we're at a critical stage of the deal, but they've gone dark for 4 weeks. I haven't been able to hear from them, and yet you're still, spending a bunch of time outreaching to other people in the organization, trying to move things along. Yeah, that could be very problematic.
Yeah, and oftentimes it's not a single signal, but it's a combination of signals that you see and say, hey, let's look at these things. And it's not moving along. Yeah.
So, I mean, one rule of thumb I use as sales leader is in sort of identifying these opportunities where we're falling into a sunk cost trap is like doing in a sales meeting or a deal review is the degree to which a sales rep becomes defensive in discussing it is sort of in inverse proportion to the likelihood of the deal ever happening.
Yeah, that's a good, I hadn't thought of that. That's a good one. I think one of the big benefits also of deal reviews is hearing other reps' experience. And we talked last time about, the difference between pattern recognition and really a bias. And you don't want to have, again, a bias that it looks like this, so it's going to close or not. But hearing a lot of different experiences and how deals are moving along can help a rep identify, I think there's trouble here. And I think there's a lot to be learned from peers in observing how deals go or don't go, and why the sharing of the team of what's happening is really, really important.
Yeah, when I think back to the point I just made about sort of being defensive, I think if you're individual contributor, sales professional, and you're in one of those deal reviews and you find yourself, sort of getting a little flush in the face and a little defensive, stop yourself and think, okay, wow, what was that? Why am I reacting that way? Because basically what's happening is someone's sort of questioning, not your integrity, but they're sort of, your manager sort of questioning your knowledge of this deal. And, good reps don't like that to happen. And, I certainly recall cases where I was defending opportunities that definitely should not have been defended. That really needed that outside perspective to say, yeah, Andy, this one's not going to happen. It didn't happen very often, but I recall uncomfortable sales meetings and deal reviews where, I just couldn't. I didn't have the answer. Because there was no answer other than the fact that, really it was time to move on.
What I tell reps is don't lose alone. And my point in that is get a lot of eyes on it. Have people look at it, get their input, be open. The more you hang on to it and obscure what's going on. And I see that a lot too. And it goes to your defensive nature and posture around a deal. And I've seen reps be so confident that, I got it. It's all going well. Everything's fine. We're on track. And I know enough either about the account or the deal or deals of this size that there are some signals that make me question whether things are as on track. And I often will encourage to talk to the reps about it. Bring me in. Let me have a conversation. you don't want to lose alone. And there's no harm in getting more eyes on it. And that's always my point. There's no harm in it. There's no harm in it. And what I'm trying to do is just to encourage the openness.
Yeah. I mean, I worked for a guy who, when he felt that coming from people, from his reps that worked for him, his sales professionals, yeah, he'd pick up the phone and call the customer. And was never fun. Let me tell you, as the account manager, account exec, that was never good to have your VP pick up the phone when you're doing a deal review and you're sort of stuttering and stuck and trying to defend it, and have him pick up the phone and call your chief point of contact and say, hey, so this is what Andy's telling me.
Yeah, I think now, Andy, so few people answer the phone if they don't know who the person is.
Yeah, the reps are safe from that.
The reps, they're a little safer now. They're like, yeah, go ahead and call him. I've been able to get a hold of him the last 8 times.
Yeah,
so
knock yourself out. Go ahead.
Knock yourself out. Go call him. See if you get a better outcome. Sometimes I've had that too, where I have not gone over a rep and said, I'm going to call him, whether you like it or not. But I have encouraged so strongly that we go into a room and we call together and I'm on the phone. So maybe it's kind of the same thing.
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay, see?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I do that.
That's sort of like bringing your mom to an interview.
I know, it's horrible, but hopefully I can be a little bit helpful.
Well, except in the cases where people bring their moms to the interview, they probably don't think it's as humiliating as sitting in the room with your boss at least I always felt it was.
Yeah, what's worse, your boss or your mom?
Yeah,
Let nobody answer that. I'm both. I'm both a boss and a mom, and so there's no way to win on the answer to this one. So it's best just not to answer.
Yeah, but I mean, if early in my career, I certainly had a call or two like that with, hey, John, this is Andy. Yeah, I've got my boss on the phone here too. That's like, uh-huh.
Yeah. Well, you try to position a little bit. The way that the reps have positioned it with me is there's an executive. You've got an executive champion here at XYZ company. So Sumo Logic, for example, you've got a champion here who wants to understand just more about this. What can she do to help? How can she be helpful? I want you to know that you've got you can reach out to her at any time. So we try to position it not just, hey, she doesn't believe I'm doing my job, so here she is to grill you a little bit.
Yeah.
Although maybe that's maybe we can say whatever we want, but it still comes across as, oh, okay, you've got your boss. I get it.
Yeah, I mean, I was fortunate that I never had the customer throw me under the bus in those situations. So, I mean, they were all good deals that were going to happen and did happen, but it certainly taught a lesson in terms of preparedness.
Yeah, and I will say that I've never had a rep be thrown under the bus either. In fact, the conversations have been positive. Mm-hmm. I can't think of one where it wasn't. I mean, I can think of them where they weren't positive, like the customer the prospect was angry or upset about something, but it wasn't. It didn't have to do with the way the rep was handling a deal or that they didn't have good deal understanding or control.
Yeah. So, I mean, just some concrete ideas for how to avoid sort of this sunk cost trap where you've reached sort of a dead end with a deal and you're really having a hard time cutting loose. And this really, comes from economists that have written about this phenomenon and talk about how companies on a company basis, how do they break free from this? So one of the first recommendations is, take that decision out of the hands of the rep or the sales manager.
That's a good one.
Is, give the decision to someone who doesn't have a direct stake in the outcome. So, someone that could be this trusted third party that doesn't have an agenda, could be, if you and your manager can't figure it out, then, hey, let's bring in the CFO and present the facts to him or her and see what they say.
Yeah, that's good.
Okay. So, or maybe sometimes it's a situation where perhaps the CEO has to step in. I mean, sometimes, that might be the appropriate person. It could be that you have, just well-intentioned disagreements, even at a VP level about, specific strategic opportunities. Let's say you're working on as a company and there's some uncertainty about it. Hey, is this continue to be worth our time? Sometimes maybe you have to elevate it all the way to the top.
I remember a situation at a company where it was a small company I was working with, and we had interest from a Fortune 100 company. And we were really of course, we were like all just beside ourselves with excitement that we could potentially sell a very large deal to this very large company, even though we were small. And I remember the board didn't tell us what to do. It was and I was at the board meeting, and we were talking about it. We were talking about what it was going to take on the part of, sales and marketing, engineering, and product and finance and blah, blah, blah. And the board had said, that is going to suck so much from the org, and you're not going to get enough back. And they didn't tell us what to do, but they made a strong recommendation to walk away from that deal. And all of us on the executive team, we were so excited about that deal. We thought they were just going to be like celebrating. And they provided another perspective. It was actually really, really helpful. And, we, in our own stubborn way, went along a little further, but eventually we did walk away from it. But they planted that initial seed of, there's another way to look at this that you might want to consider. That was really helpful.
Yeah, and that sort of comes to the third idea to sort of make decisions and this is maybe you bringing people even more objective than your board, but yeah, bring in someone who's outside the company, an executive coach like me, for instance, or a consultant or somebody with experience who can help you analyze the situation and, look at the pros and cons and help you reach a dispassionate decision about what to do.
Yeah, super helpful. And it takes the willingness to ask the question and open it up and really look and say, should I keep working on this one or not? And that's hard. That's hard for any sales rep to do. Let's not underestimate. But you've invested a lot, and that's hard. It's important to do it, but it is hard.
Yeah, and sometimes the decision will be to keep working it. I mean, I had one situation with one startup.
Definitely.
One startup is that we were working on a deal that was absolutely essential in some respects to sort of the next step growth the company wanted to take, but it was exhausting the organization, literally, to get it to that point. And, it was the CEO and the founder of the company that said, gosh darn it, we're not giving up on this. Right? I mean, he had a better, being objective, maybe had a better vision of the value and the benefit that was going to bring to the company by continuing to invest the resources. And he was confident enough from his perspective, objectively, because he wasn't as directly in the deal flow, to see that, yeah, we could pull it off. But I mean, that was one occasion where basically the team was ready to say, yeah, this isn't going to happen. We've reached the point of no return. But, the CEO sort of said, yeah, all the way, keep working it because it is going to happen.
Yeah, and that's a good point. Sometimes it'll go the other way, that we may give up too quickly, and we need somebody to say, no, this is worth hanging in there for. It may take a little longer, whatever, but it's worth hanging in there for.
Yeah, and maybe is worth a little bit more investment because they can see something that perhaps, again, forest for the tree syndrome that we all couldn't see.
That's right.
Okay. Well, cool. Well, so we've gone through that. Avoid the sunk cost trap if you can, thinking that you can win every deal just because they become a prospect. And, if you're stuck in a deal, as you talked about, is ask for help. Don't lose a deal alone. And that to me, that's a cardinal sin.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't ask for help
Yep.
on deals that are important to the company, important to you as an individual, you can never be too proud to ask for help. I mean, this is I know in some companies there's this ethos that, hey, I'm in this position, I should be able to do it. I shouldn't need any external help. I think we're starting to develop, corporate cultures around the country and so on, where it's like it's okay to bring in a resource to help you, whether it's from another department of the company or from outside the company, to give you that extra perspective because you have invested money in it. Give yourself the best opportunity to win.
Yeah, and I would say on this point of don't lose alone, I think I came out of the womb, I can do it myself. Like I am so fiercely independent. And that's one for me that I've had to really work for all of my life, all of my career, is to just continually bring other people in and make that a habit and be open to that. Because I tend to be pretty independent. So I recognize that one can be hard for people.
Well, I think it's also hard when you've got a certain set of experiences and so on, and you think, given your sort of intimate involvement with the account, you think, well, who could know more about it than I do?
Precisely.
Right. So it's not, and at that point, it's not a question about knowledge of the account. It's having the objectivity to ask the right questions to, just like you would in discovery with a prospect, to get the right answers back.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah. So, okay. So, well, Miss Independent, thanks for joining me, as always, on the Frontline Friday as we tackle another topic. And I think we were talking about my travel. I think you've got some travel coming up as well, some exciting travel. Definitely.
I've got some travel.
Okay.
You've got some travel. It's going to be a fun couple of months.
Yeah, during the fall. Fall is a good time to get out. Now the crowds, I was at the airport this morning. It's the first time I'd traveled after Labor Day. And yeah, there was certainly fewer people. It was still incredibly busy at JFK Airport. A lot of people, but the vibe is completely different once you get past Labor Day. People aren't quite as frantic.
Okay, good to know.
Fewer kids. Most of them are in school. So different people traveling for different reasons. But anyway, yeah. So anyway, have great travels, and we'll look forward to talking to you next week. And to our friends who are listening, as always, we really appreciate you taking the time to join us. And if you have any questions about sales, any topic, sales management, techniques, tactics, strategies, anything that Bridget or I could help you with, send me an email, Andy@zerotimeselling.com, and we'll get it on the air and we'll talk about it. But in the meantime, Bridget, we'll talk to you next week.
Sounds great, Andy. Have a great one.
All right. Bye. Thanks for listening to the show. If you like what you heard and want to make sure you don't miss any upcoming episodes, please subscribe to this podcast on iTunes or Stitcher.com. For more information about today's guest, visit my website at andypaul.com.